Section 1 of Selected Letters of Beethoven. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Robert Scott. Selected Letters Number 4 and 5 by Ludwig van Beethoven, as compiled and with footnotes by Dr. Ludwig Noll and translated by Lady Grace Wallace. Letter number 4 to Eleanor von Breuning, Bonn, Vienna, November 2, 1793. My highly esteemed Eleanor, my dearest friend, a year of my stay in this capital has nearly elapsed before you receive a letter from me, and yet the most vivid remembrance of you is ever present with me. I have often conversed in thought with you and your dear family, though not always in the happy mood I could have wished, for that fatal misunderstanding still hovered before me, and my conduct at that time is now hateful in my sight. But so it was, and how much would I give to have the power wholly to obliterate from my life a mode of acting so degrading to myself and so contrary to the usual tenor of my character. Many circumstances indeed contributed to estrange us, and I suspect that those talebearers who repeated alternately to you and to me our mutual expressions were the chief obstacles to any good understanding between us. Each believed that what was said proceeded from deliberate conviction, whereas it arose only from anger, fanned by others, so we were both mistaken. Your good and noble disposition, my dear friend, is sufficient security that you have long since forgiven me. We are told that the best proof of sincere contrition is to acknowledge our faults, and this is what I wish to do. Let us now draw a veil over the whole affair, learning one lesson from it, that when friends are at variance, it is always better to employ no mediator, but to communicate directly with each other. With this you will receive a dedication from me, the variations on C'est vous belair. My sole wish is that the work were greater and more worthy of you. I was applied to here publish this little work, and I take advantage of the opportunity, my beloved Eleanor, to give you a proof of my regard and friendship for yourself, and also a token of my endearing remembrance of your family. Pray, then, accept this trifle, and do not forget that it is offered by a devoted friend. Oh, if it only gives you pleasure, my wish will be fulfilled. May it in some degree recall the time when I passed so many happy hours in your house. Perhaps it may serve to remind you of me till I return, though this is indeed a distant prospect. Oh, how we shall then rejoice together, my dear Eleanor! You will, I trust, find your friend a happier man, all former forbidding, careworn furrows smoothed away by time and better fortune. When you see B. Koch, note, subsequently Countess Belderbusch, pray say that it is unkind in her never once to have written to me. I wrote to her twice and 3 times to Malchus, note, afterwards Westphalian Minister of Finance, but no answer. Tell her that if she does not choose to write herself, I beg that she will at least urge Malchus to do so. At the close of my letter I venture to make one more request. I am anxious to be so fortunate as again to possess an Angola waistcoat knitted by your hand, my dear friend. Forgive my indiscreet request. It proceeds from my great love for all that comes from you, and I may privately admit that a little vanity is connected with it, namely, that I may say I possess something from the best and most admired young lady in Bonn. I still have the one you were so good as to give me in Bonn, but change of fashion has made it look so antiquated that I can only treasure it in my wardrobe as your gift, and thus still very dear to me. You would make me very happy by soon writing me a letter. If mine causes you any pleasure, I promise you to do as you wish, and write as often as it lies in my power. Indeed, everything is acceptable to me that can serve to show you how truly I am your admiring and sincere friend, L.V. Beethoven. P.S. The variations are rather difficult to play, especially the shake in the coda, but do not be alarmed at this, being so contrived that you only require to play the shake and leave out the other notes, which also occur in the violin part. I never would have written it in this way had I not occasionally observed that there was a certain individual in Vienna who, when I extemporized the previous evening, not unfrequently wrote down the next day many of the peculiarities of my music, adopting them as his own. For instance, the Abigelinnik. Concluding, therefore, that some of these things would soon appear, I resolved to anticipate this. Another reason also was to puzzle some of the pianoforte teachers here, many of whom are my mortal foes. So I wished to revenge myself on them in this way, knowing that they would occasionally be asked to play the variations when these gentlemen would not appear to much advantage. Beethoven. End of letter number 4. Letter number 5 to Eleanor van Brunig, Bonn. The beautiful neckcloth embroidered by your own hand was the greatest possible surprise to me, yet welcome as the gift was, it awakened within me feelings of sadness. Its effect was to recall former days and put me to shame by your noble conduct to me. I indeed need little thought that you still consider me worthy of your remembrance. Oh, if you could have witnessed my emotions yesterday when this incident occurred, you would not think that I exaggerate in saying that such a token of your recollection brought tears to my eyes, and made me feel very sad. Little as I may deserve favor in your eyes, believe me, my dear friend, let me call you so, I have suffered and still suffer severely from the privation of your friendship. Never can I forget you and your dear mother. You were so kind to me that your loss neither can nor will be easily replaced. I know what I have forfeited and what you were to me, but in order to fill up this blank, I must recur to scenes equally painful for you to hear and for me to detail. As a slight requital of your kind souvenir, I take the liberty to send you some variations and a rondo with violin accompaniment. I have a great deal to do, or I would long since have transcribed the sonata I promised you. It is as yet a mere sketch in manuscript, and to copy it would be a difficult task even for the clever and practiced Paraquin. Note: counterbass in the electoral orchestra. You can have the rondo copied and return the score. What I now send is the only one of my works at all suitable for you. Besides, as you are going to Kirpin, where my uncle of the family lived, I thought these trifles might cause you pleasure. Farewell, my friend, for it is impossible for me to give you any other name. However indifferent I may be to you, believe me, I shall ever continue to revere you and your mother as I have always done. If I can in any way contribute to the fulfillment of a wish of yours, do not fail to let me know, for I have no other means of testifying my gratitude for past friendship. I wish you an agreeable journey, and that your dear mother may return entirely restored to health. Think sometimes of your affectionate friend, Beethoven. End of letter number 5. End of section 1 of Selected Letters of Beethoven, as compiled and with footnotes by Dr. Ludwig Noll and translated by Lady Grace Wallace. Recording by Robert Scott, June the 20th, 2007.
2 of Selected Letters of Beethoven. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Scott D. Farquhar. Selected Letters, number 13, by Ludwig van Beethoven. As compiled and with footnotes by Dr. Ludwig Noll and translated by Lady Grace Wallace. Letter number 13, to Pastor Amenda, 1800. My dear, my good Amenda, my warm-hearted friend, I received and read your last letter with deep emotion and with mingled pain and pleasure. To what can I compare your fidelity and devotion to me? Ah, it is indeed delightful that you still continue to love me so well. I know how to prize you and to distinguish you from all others. You are not like my Vienna friends. No, you are one of those whom the soil of my fatherland is wont to bring forth. How often I wish that you were with me, for your Beethoven is very unhappy. You must know that one of my most precious faculties, that of hearing, is become very defective. Even while you were still with me, I felt indications of this, though I said nothing. But it is now much worse. Whether I shall ever be cured remains yet to be seen. It is supposed to proceed from the state of my digestive organs, but I am almost entirely recovered in that respect. I hope, indeed, that my hearing may improve, but I scarcely think so, for attacks of this kind are the most incurable of all. How sad my life must now be, forced to shun all that is most dear and precious to me, and to live with such miserable egotists as blank, name unknown or illegible. I can with truth say that of all my friends Lichnowsky, Prince Karl, is the most genuine. He last year settled 600 florins on me, which, together with the good sale of my works, enables me to live free from care as to my maintenance. All that I now write I can dispose of 5 times over, and be well paid into the bargain. I have been writing a good deal latterly, and as I hear that you have ordered some pianos, I will send you some of my compositions in the packing case of one of these instruments, by which means they will not cost you so much. To my great comfort, a person has returned here with whom I can enjoy the pleasures of society and disinterested friendship, one of the friends of my youth, Stephan von Breuning. I have often spoken to him of you, and told him that since I left my fatherland, you are one of those to whom my heart specially clings. Z, possibly Zmeskal, does not seem quite to please him. He is, and always will be, too weak for true friendship, and I look on him and blank, name unknown or legible, as mere instruments on which I play as I please, but never can they bear noble testimony to my inner and outward energies, or feel true sympathy with me. I value them only in so far as their services deserve. Oh, how happy should I now be had I my full sense of hearing! I would then hasten to you, whereas, as it is, I must withdraw from everything. My best years will thus pass away, without effecting what my talents and powers might have enabled me to perform. How melancholy is the resignation in which I must take refuge! I had determined to rise superior to all this, but how is that possible? If in the course of 6 months my malady be pronounced incurable, then, Amenda, I shall appeal to you to leave all else and come to me, when I intend to travel. My affliction is less distressing when playing and composing, and most so in intercourse with others, and you must be my companion. I have a conviction that good fortune will not forsake me, for to what may I not at present aspire? Since you were here, I have written everything except operas and church music. You will not, I know, refuse my petition. You will help your friend to bear his burden and his calamity. I have also very much perfected my pianoforte playing, and I hope that a journey of this kind may possibly contribute to your own success in life, and you would thenceforth always remain with me. I duly received all your letters, and though I did not reply to them, you were constantly present with me, and my heart beats as tenderly as ever for you. I beg you will keep the fact of my deafness a profound secret, and not confide it to any human being. Write to me frequently. Your letters, however short, console and cheer me, so I shall soon hope to hear from you. Do not give your quartet to anyone in F, Opus 18, No. 1, as I have altered it very much, having only now succeeded in writing quartets properly. This you will at once perceive when you receive it. Now, farewell, my dear kind friend. If by any chance I can serve you here, I need not say that you have only to command me. Your faithful and truly attached, L. V. Beethoven. End of letter number 13. End of section 2 of Selected Letters of Beethoven, as compiled and with footnotes by Dr. Ludwig Noll, and translated by Lady Grace Wallace. Recording by Scott Farquhar, Baltimore, Maryland. www.splungemusic.com.
Of Selected Letters of Beethoven. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This reading by Kara Schallenberg. Selected Letters, Numbers 14 and 18, by Ludwig van Beethoven. As compiled and with footnotes by Dr. Ludwig Noll and translated by Lady Grace Wallace. Letter number 14. To Wegeler. Vienna, June 29th, 1800. My dear and valued Wegeler, how much I thank you for your remembrance of me, little as I deserve it, or have sought to deserve it. And yet you are so kind that you allow nothing, not even my unpardonable neglect, to discourage you, always remaining the same true, good, and faithful friend. That I can ever forget you or yours, once so dear and precious to me, do not for a moment believe. There are times when I find myself longing to see you again, and wishing that I could go to stay with you. My fatherland, that lovely region where I first saw the light, is still as distinct and beauteous in my eyes as when I quitted you. In short, I shall esteem the time when I once more see you and again greet Father Rhine as one of the happiest periods of my life. When this may be, I cannot yet tell, but at all events I may say that you shall not see me again till I have become eminent, not only as an artist, but better and more perfect as a man. And if the condition of our fatherland be then more prosperous, my art shall be entirely devoted to the benefit of the poor. O blissful moment! How happy do I esteem myself that I can expedite it, and bring it to pass. You desire to know something of my position. Well, it is by no means bad. However incredible it may appear, I must tell you that Lichnowsky has been, and still is, my warmest friend. Slight dissensions occurred occasionally between us, and yet they only served to strengthen our friendship. He settled on me last year the sum of 600 florins, for which I am to draw on him till I can procure some suitable situation. My compositions are very profitable, and I may really say that I have almost more commissions than it is possible for me to execute. I can have 6 or 7 publishers or more for every piece, if I choose. They no longer bargain with me. I demand, and they pay. So you see this is a very good thing. For instance, I have a friend in distress, and my purse does not admit of my assisting him at once, but I have only to sit down and write, and in a short time he is relieved. I am also become more economical than formerly. If I finally settle here, I don't doubt I shall be able to secure a particular day every year for a concert, of which I have already given several. That malicious demon, however, bad health, has been a stumbling block in my path. My hearing during the last 3 years has become gradually worse. The chief cause of this infirmity proceeds from the state of my digestive organs, which, as you know, were formerly bad enough, but have latterly become much worse, and being constantly afflicted with diarrhoea has brought on extreme weakness. Frank, director of the General Hospital, drove to restore the tone of my digestion by tonics, and my hearing by oil of almonds, but alas, these did me no good whatever. My hearing became worse, and my digestion continued in its former plight. This went on till the autumn of last year, when I was often reduced to utter despair. Then some medical asinus recommended me cold baths, but a more judicious doctor the tepid ones of the Danube, which did wonders for me. My digestion improved, but my hearing remained the same, or in fact rather got worse. I did indeed pass a miserable winter. I suffered from most dreadful spasms, and sank back into my former condition. Thus it went on till about a month ago, when I consulted Vering, an army surgeon, under the belief that my maladies required surgical advice. Besides, I had every confidence in him. He succeeded in almost entirely checking the violent diarrhoea, and ordered me the tepid baths of the Danube, into which I pour some strengthening mixture. He gave me no medicine except some digestive pills 4 days ago, and a lotion for my ears. I certainly do feel better and stronger, but my ears are buzzing and ringing perpetually, day and night. I can with truth say that my life is very wretched. For nearly 2 years past I have avoided all society, because I find it impossible to say to people, "I am deaf." In any other profession this might be more tolerable, but in mine such a condition is truly frightful. Besides, what would my enemies say to this? And they are not few in number. To give you some idea of my extraordinary deafness, I must tell you that in the theatre I am obliged to lean close up against the orchestra in order to understand the actors, and when a little way off I hear none of the high notes of instruments or singers. It is most astonishing that in conversation some people never seem to observe this. Being subject to fits of absence, they attribute it to that cause. I often can scarcely hear a person if speaking low. I can distinguish the tones, but not the words, and yet I feel it intolerable if anyone shouts to me. Heaven alone knows how it is to end. Vering declares that I shall certainly improve, even if I be not entirely restored. How often have I cursed my existence! Plutarch led me to resignation. I shall strive if possible to set fate at defiance, although there must be moments in my life when I cannot fail to be the most unhappy of God's creatures. I entreat you to say nothing of my affliction to anyone, not even to Lorchen. I confide the secret to you alone, and entreat you some day to correspond with Vering on the subject. If I continue in the same state, I shall come to you in the ensuing spring, when you must engage a house for me somewhere in the country, amid beautiful scenery, and I shall then become a rustic for a year, which may perhaps effect a change. Resignation! What a miserable refuge! And yet it is my sole remaining one. You will forgive my thus appealing to your kindly sympathies at a time when your own position is sad enough. Stefan Brüning is here, and we are together almost every day. It does me so much good to revive old feelings. He has really become a capital good fellow, not devoid of talent, and his heart, like that of us all, pretty much in the right place. I have very charming rooms at present, adjoining the Bastei, the ramparts, and peculiarly valuable to me on account of my health, at Baron Pascolatti's. I do really think that I shall be able to arrange that Breuning shall come to me. You shall have your Antiochus, a picture, and plenty of my music besides, if indeed it will not cost you too much. Your love of art does honestly rejoice me. Only say how it is to be done, and I will send you all my works, which now amount to a considerable number, and are daily increasing. I beg you will let me have my grandfather's portrait as soon as possible by the post, in return for which I send you that of his grandson, your loving and attached Beethoven. It has been brought out here by Artaria, who, as well as many other publishers, has often urged this on me. I intend soon to write to Stoffeln (Christoph von Breuning) and plainly admonish him about his surly humour. I mean to sound in his ears our old friendship, and to insist on his promising me not to annoy you further in your sad circumstances. I will also write to the amiable Lorchen. Never have I forgotten one of you, my kind friends, though you did not hear from me, but you know well that writing never was my forte, even my best friends having received no letters from me for years. I live wholly in my music, and scarcely is one work finished when another is begun. Indeed, I am now often at work on 3 or 4 things at the same time. Do write to me frequently, and I will strive to find time to write to you also. Give my remembrances to all, especially to the kind Frau Hofräthin von Breuning, and say to her that I am still subject to an occasional raptus. As for K., I am not at all surprised at the change in her. Fortune rolls like a ball, and does not always stop before the best and noblest. As to Ries, court musician in Bonn, to whom pray cordially remember me, I must say one word. I will write to you more particularly about his son, Ferdinand, although I believe that he would be more likely to succeed in Paris than in Vienna, which is already overstocked, and where even those of the highest merit find it a hard matter to maintain themselves. By next autumn or winter I shall be able to see what can be done for him, because then all the world returns to town. Farewell, my kind, faithful Wegeler. Rest assured of the love and friendship of your Beethoven. End of letter number 14. Letter number 18. To Herr von Wegeler. Vienna, November 16th, 1800. My dear Wegeler, I thank you for this fresh proof of your interest in me, especially as I so little deserve it. You wish to know how I am, and what remedies I use. Unwilling as I always feel to discuss this subject, still I feel less reluctant to do so with you than with any other person. For some months past Währing has ordered me to apply blisters on both arms of a particular kind of bark, with which you are probably acquainted, a disagreeable remedy, independent of the pain, as it deprives me of the free use of my arms for a couple of days at a time, till the blisters have drawn sufficiently. The ringing and buzzing in my ears have certainly rather decreased, particularly in the left ear, in which the malady first commenced, but my hearing is not at all improved. In fact, I fear that it is become rather worse. My health is better, and after using the tepid baths for a time, I feel pretty well for 8 or 10 days. I seldom take tonics, but I have begun applications of herbs, according to your advice. Währing will not hear of plunge baths, but I am much dissatisfied with him. He is neither so attentive nor so indulgent as he ought to be to such a malady. If I did not go to him, which is no easy matter, I should never see him at all. What is your opinion of Schmid, an army surgeon? I am unwilling to make any change, but it seems to me that Währing is too much of a practitioner to acquire new ideas by reading. On this point Schmidt appears to be a very different man, and would probably be less negligent with regard to my case. I hear wonders of galvanism. What do you say to it? A physician told me that he knew a deaf and dumb child whose hearing was restored by it, in Berlin, and likewise a man who had been deaf for 7 years and recovered his hearing. I am told that your friend Schmidt is at this moment making experiments on the subject. I am now leading a somewhat more agreeable life, as of late I have been associating more with other people. You could scarcely believe what a sad and dreary life mine has been for the last 2 years, my defective hearing everywhere pursuing me like a spectre, making me fly from every one, and appear a misanthrope, and yet no one is in reality less so. This change has been wrought by a lovely, fascinating girl, undoubtedly Giulietta, who loves me and whom I love. I have once more had some blissful moments during the last 2 years, and it is the first time I ever felt that marriage could make me happy. Unluckily, she is not in my rank of life, and indeed at this moment I can marry no one. I must first bestir myself actively in the world. Had it not been for my deafness, I would have travelled half round the globe ere now, and this I must still do. For me there is no pleasure so great as to promote and to pursue my art. Do not suppose that I could be happy with you. What indeed could make me happier? Your very solicitude would distress me. I should read your compassion every moment in your countenance, which would make me only still more unhappy. What were my thoughts amid the glorious scenery of my fatherland? The hope alone of a happier future, which would have been mine but for this affliction. Oh, I could span the world, were I only free from this. I feel that my youth is only now commencing. Have I not always been an infirm creature? For some time past my bodily strength has been increasing, and it is the same with my mental powers. I feel, though I cannot describe it, that I daily approach the object I have in view, in which alone can your Beethoven live. No rest for him. I know of none but in sleep, and I do grudge being obliged to sacrifice more time to it than formerly. Footnote 1. Were I only half cured of my malady, then I would come to you, and as a more perfect and mature man renew our old friendship. You should then see me as happy as I am ever destined to be here below, not unhappy. No, that I could not endure. I will boldly meet my fate. Never shall it succeed in crushing me. Oh, it is so glorious to live one's life 1,000 times over. I feel that I am no longer made for a quiet existence. You will write to me as soon as possible. Pray try to prevail on Stephan von Breuning to seek an appointment from the Teutonic Order somewhere. Life here is too harassing for his health. Besides, he is so isolated that I do not see how he is ever to get on. You know the kind of existence here. I do not take it upon myself to say that society would dispel his lassitude, but he cannot be persuaded to go anywhere. A short time since I had some music in my house, but our friend Stephan stayed away. Do recommend him to be more calm and self-possessed, which I have in vain tried to effect. Otherwise he can neither enjoy health nor happiness. Tell me in your next letter whether you care about my sending you a large selection of music. You can indeed dispose of what you do not want, and thus repay the expense of the carriage, and have my portrait into the bargain. Say all that is kind and amiable from me to Lorchen, and also to Mamma and Christoph. You still have some regard for me? Always rely on the love as well as the friendship of your Beethoven. Footnote 1. Too much sleep is hurtful is marked by a thick score in the Odyssey 45, 393, by Beethoven's hand. See Schindler's Beethoven's Nachlass. End of letter number 18. End of section 3 of Selected Letters of Beethoven, as compiled and with footnotes by Dr. Ludwig Noll and translated by Lady Grace Wallace. Recording by Kara Schallenberg, www.kray.org, on June 29, 2007, in Oceanside, California.
4 of Selected Letters of Beethoven. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Selected Letters, number 15, by Ludwig van Beethoven. As compiled and with footnotes by Dr. Ludwig Noll and translated by Lady Grace Wallace. Letter number 15. To Countess Giulietta Guicciardi. Footnote 1. These letters to his immortal beloved, to whom the C-sharp minor sonata is dedicated, appear here for the first time in their integrity, in accordance with the originals written in pencil on fine note paper, and given in Schindler's Beethoven's Nachlass. There has been much discussion about the date. It is certified, in the first place, in the church register which Alex Thayer saw in Vienna, that Giulietta was married to Count Gallenberg in 1801, and, in the next place, the 6th of July falls on a Monday in 1800. The other reasons which induce me decidedly to fix this latter year as the date of the letter, I mean to give at full length in the second volume of Beethoven's biography. I may also state that Beethoven was at Baths in Hungary at that time. Whether the K in the second letter means Comorn, I cannot tell. Morning, July the 6th, 1800. My angel, my all, my second self! Only a few words to-day, written with a pencil, your own. My residence cannot be settled till to-morrow. What a tiresome loss of time! Why this deep grief when necessity compels? Can our love exist without sacrifices, and by refraining from desiring all things? Can you alter the fact that you are not wholly mine, nor I wholly yours? Ah, contemplate the beauties of nature, and reconcile your spirit to the inevitable. Love demands all, and has a right to do so, and thus it is I feel towards you, and you towards me. But you do not sufficiently remember that I must live both for you and for myself. Were we wholly united, you would feel this sorrow as little as I should. My journey was terrible. I did not arrive here till 4 o'clock yesterday morning, as no horses were to be had. The drivers chose another route, but what a dreadful one it was! At the last stage I was warned not to travel through the night, and to beware of a certain wood, but this only incited me to go forward, and I was wrong. The carriage broke down, owing to the execrable roads, mere deep rough country lanes, and had it not been for the postilions, I must have been left by the wayside. Esterhazy, travelling the usual road, had the same fate with 8 horses, whereas I had only 4. Still I felt a certain degree of pleasure, which I invariably do when I have happily surmounted any difficulty. But I must now pass from the outer to the inner man. We shall, I trust, soon meet again. To-day I cannot impart to you all the reflections I have made during the last few days on my life. Were our hearts closely united for ever, none of these would occur to me. My heart is overflowing with all I have to say to you. Ah, there are moments when I find that speech is actually nothing. Take courage. Continue to be ever my true and only love, my all, as I am yours. The gods must ordain what is further to be and shall be. Your faithful Ludwig. Monday evening, July the 6th. You grieve, dearest of all beings! I have just heard that the letters must be sent off very early. Mondays and Thursdays are the only days when the post goes to K from here. You grieve. Ah, where I am, there you are ever with me. How earnestly shall I strive to pass my life with you, and what a life will it be! Whereas now, without you, and persecuted by the kindness of others, which I neither deserve nor try to deserve. The servility of man towards his fellow men pains me, And when I regard myself as a component part of the universe, what am I, what is he who is called the greatest? And yet herein are displayed the godlike feelings of humanity. I weep in thinking that you will receive no intelligence from me till probably Saturday. However dearly you may love me, I love you more fondly still. Never conceal your feelings from me. Good night. As a patient at these baths, I must now go to rest. A few words are here effaced by Beethoven himself. Oh heavens! So near, and yet so far! Is not our love a truly celestial mansion, but firm as the vault of heaven itself? July the 7th. Good morning. Even before I rise, my thoughts throng to you, my immortal beloved, sometimes full of joy, and yet again sad, waiting to see whether fate will hear us. I must live either wholly with you, or not at all. Indeed, I have resolved to wander far from you. See number 13. Till the moment arrives when I can fly into your arms, and feel that they are my home, and send forth my soul in unison with yours into the realm of spirits. Alas, it must be so! You will take courage, for you know my fidelity. Never can another possess my heart, never, never! Oh heavens! Why must I fly from her I so fondly love? And yet my existence in W was as miserable as here. Your love made me the most happy, and yet the most unhappy of men. At my age, life requires a uniform equality. Can this be found in our mutual relations? My angel! I have this moment heard that the post goes every day, so I must conclude, that you may get this letter the sooner. Be calm, for we can only attain our object of living together by the calm contemplation of our existence. Continue to love me. Yesterday, today, what longings for you, what tears for you! For you, my life, my all! Farewell! Oh, love me forever, and never doubt the faithful heart of your lover, L. Ever thine, ever mine, ever each other's. End of letter number 15. End of section 4 of Selected Letters of Beethoven, as compiled and with footnotes by Dr. Ludwig Noll, and translated by Lady Grace Wallace. Recording by ISWA in August 2007 in Belgium.
Section 5 of Selected Letters of Beethoven. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Scott D. Farquhar. Selected Letters, numbers 19, 20, 21, 22, 25, and 29 by Ludwig van Beethoven, as compiled and with footnotes by Dr. Ludwig Noll and translated by Lady Grace Wallace. Letter number 19, to Kapellmeister Hofmeister, Leipzig, footnote 1. Vienna, December 15th, 1800. My dear brother in art, I have often intended to answer your proposals, but am frightfully lazy about all correspondence, so it is usually a good while before I can make up my mind to write dry letters instead of music. I have, however, at last forced myself to answer your application. Pro primo, I must tell you how much I regret that you, my much-loved brother in the science of music, did not give me some hint so that I might have offered you my quartets, as well as many other things that I have now disposed of. But if you are as conscientious, my dear brother, as many other publishers who grind to death us poor composers, you will know pretty well how to derive ample profit when the works appear. I now briefly state what you can have from me. First, a septet per il violino, viola, violoncello, contrabasso, clarinetto, corno, fagotto, tutti obbligati. I can write nothing that is not obbligato, having come into the world with an obbligato accompaniment. This septet pleases very much. For more general use it might be arranged for one more violino, viola, and violoncello, instead of the 3 wind instruments, fagotto, clarinetto, and corno. Footnote 2. Second, a grand symphony with full orchestra, the first. Third, a pianoforte concerto, opus 19, which I by no means assert to be one of my best, any more than the one Molo is to publish here, opus 15. This is for the benefit of the Leipzig critics, because I reserve the best for myself till I set off on my travels. Still, the work will not disgrace you to publish. Fourth, a grand solo sonata, opus 22. These are all I can part with at this moment. A little later you can have a quintet for stringed instruments, and probably some quartets also, and other pieces that I have not at present beside me. In your answer you can yourself fix the prices, and as you are neither an Italian nor a Jew, nor am I either, we shall no doubt quickly agree. Farewell, and rest assured, my dear brother in art, of the esteem of your Beethoven. Footnote 1. The letters to Hofmeister, formerly of Vienna, who conducted the correspondence with Beethoven in the name of the firm of Hofmeister and Kühnel, Bureau de Musique, are given here as they first appeared in 1837 in the Neue Zeitschrift für Musik. On applying to the present representative of that firm, I was told that those who now possess these letters decline giving them out of their own hands, and that no copyist can be found able to decipher or transcribe them correctly. Footnote 2. This last phrase is not in the copy before me, but in Marx's biography, who appears to have seen the original. End of letter number 19. Letter number 20, to Kapellmeister Hofmeister, Vienna, January 15, or thereabouts, 1801. I read your letter, dear brother and friend, with much pleasure, and I thank you for your good opinion of me and of my works, and I hope I may continue to deserve it. I also beg you to present all due thanks to Herr K. Kühnel for his politeness and friendship towards me. I, on my part, rejoice in your undertakings, and am glad that when works of art do turn out profitable, they fall to the share of true artists, rather than to that of mere tradesmen. Your intention to publish Sebastian Bach's works really gladdens my heart, which beats with devotion for the lofty and grand productions of this, our father of the science of harmony, and I trust I shall soon see them appear. I hope, when golden peace is proclaimed, and your subscription list opened, to procure you many subscribers here. Footnote 1. With regard to our own transactions, as you wish to know my proposals, they are as follows. I offer you at present the following works: the septet, which I already wrote to you about, 20 ducats; symphony, 20 ducats; concerto, 10 ducats; grand solo sonata, allegro, adagio, menuetto, rondo, 20 ducats. This sonata, opus 22, is well up to the mark, my dear brother. Now for explanations. You may perhaps be surprised that I make no difference of price between the sonata, septet, and symphony. I do so because I find that a septet or a symphony has not so great a sale as a sonata, though a symphony ought unquestionably to be of the most value. And b. The septet consists of a short introductory adagio, an allegro, adagio, menuetto, andante, with variations, minuetto, and another short adagio preceding a presto. I only ask 10 ducats for the concerto, for, as I already wrote to you, I do not consider it one of my best. I cannot think that, taken as a whole, you will consider these prices exorbitant. At least, I have endeavored to make them as moderate as possible for you. With regard to the banker's draft, as you give me my choice, I beg you will make it payable by Germüller or Schuler. The entire sum for the 4 works will amount to 70 ducats. I understand no currency but Vienna ducats, so how many dollars in gold they make in your money is no affair of mine, for really I am a very bad man of business and accountant. Now this troublesome business is concluded. I call it so heartily, wishing that it could be otherwise here below. There ought to be, only one grand depot of art in the world, to which the artist might repair with his works, and on presenting them receive what he required. But as it now is, one must be half a tradesman besides, and how is this to be endured? Good heavens, I may well call it troublesome. As for the Leipzig oxen, footnote 2, let them talk. They certainly will make no man immortal by their prating, and as little can they deprive of immortality those whom Apollo destines to attain it. Now may heaven preserve you and your colleagues. I have been unwell for some time, so it is rather difficult for me at present to write even music, much more letters. I trust we shall have frequent opportunities to assure each other how truly you are my friend, and I yours. I hope for a speedy answer. Adieu. L. V. Beethoven. Footnote 1. I have at this moment in my hands this edition of Bach, bound in one thick volume, together with the first part of Nägeli's edition of the Volotemprietis Clavier, also 3 books of exercises, D, G, and C minor, the Toccata in D minor, and twice 15 inventions. Footnote 2. It is thus that Schindler supplies the gap. It is probably an allusion to the Allgemeine Musikalische Zeitung, founded about 3 years previously. End of letter number 20. Letter number 21 to Herr Hofmeister, Vienna, April 22nd, 1801. You have indeed too good cause to complain not a little of me. My excuse is that I have been ill, and in addition had so much to do that I could scarcely even think of what I was to send you. Moreover, the only thing in me that resembles a genius is that my papers are never in very good order, and yet no one but myself can succeed in arranging them. For instance, in the score of the concerto, the piano part, according to my usual custom, was not yet written down, so, owing to my hurry, you will receive it in my own very illegible writing. In order that the works may follow as nearly as possible in their proper order, I have marked the numbers to be placed on each as follows: Solo Sonata, Opus 22, Symphony, Opus 21, Septet, Opus 20, Concerto, Opus 19. I will send you their various titles shortly. Put me down as a subscriber to Sebastian Bach's works, and also Prince Lichnowsky. The arrangement of Mozart's sonatas as quartets will do you much credit, and no doubt be profitable also. I wish I could contribute more to the promotion of such an undertaking, but I am an irregular man, and too apt, even with the best intentions, to forget everything. I have, however, mentioned the matter to various people, and I everywhere find them well disposed towards it. It would be a good thing if you would arrange the septet you are about to publish as a quintet, with a flute part, for instance. This would be an advantage to amateurs of the flute, who have already importuned me on the subject, and who would swarm round it like insects and banquet on it. Now, to tell you something of myself, I have written a ballet, Prometheus, in which the ballet master has not done his part so well as might be. The F. von L. has also bestowed on us a production which by no means corresponds with the ideas of his genius conveyed by the newspaper reports. F. seems to have taken Herr M., possibly Wenzel Müller, as his ideal at the Kasperle, yet without even rising to his level. Such are the fine prospects before us poor people who strive to struggle upwards. My dear friend, pray lose no time in bringing the work before the notice of the public, and write to me soon, that I may know whether by my delay I have entirely forfeited your confidence for the future. Say all that is civil and kind to your partner Kühnel. Everything shall henceforth be sent finished, and in quick succession. So now farewell, and continue your regards for your friend and brother, Beethoven. End of letter number 21. Letter number 22 to Herr Hofmeister, Vienna, June 1801. I am rather surprised at the communication you have desired your business agent here to make to me. I may well feel offended at your believing me capable of so mean a trick. It would have been a very different thing had I sold my works to rapacious shopkeepers, and then secretly made another good speculation. But from one artist to another, it is rather a strong measure to suspect me of such a proceeding. The whole thing seems to be either a device to put me to the test, or a mere suspicion. In any event, I may tell you that before you received the septet from me, I had sent it to Mr. Salomon in London to be played at his own concert, which I did solely from friendship, with the express injunction to beware of it getting into other hands, as it was my intention to have it engraved in Germany, and, if you choose, you can apply to him for the confirmation of this. But to give you a further proof of my integrity, I herewith give you the faithful assurance that I have neither sold the septet, the symphony, the concerto, nor the sonata to any one but to Messrs. Hofmeister and Kühnel, and that they may consider them to be their own exclusive property, and to this I pledge my honor. You may make what use you please of this guarantee. Moreover, I believe Salomon to be as incapable of the baseness of engraving the septet as I am of selling it to him. I was so scrupulous in the matter that when applied to by various publishers to sanction a pianoforte arrangement of the septet, I at once declined, though I do not even know whether you proposed making use of it in this way. Here follow the long-promised titles of the works. There will no doubt be a good deal to alter and to amend in them, but this I leave to you. I shall soon expect a letter from you, and, I hope, the works likewise, which I wish to see engraved, as others have appeared and are about to appear in connection with these numbers. I look on your statement as founded on mere rumors, which you have believed with too much facility, or based entirely on supposition, induced by having perchance heard that I had sent the work to Salomon. I cannot therefore but feel some coolness towards such a credulous friend, though I still subscribe myself your friend, Beethoven. End of letter number 22. Letter number 25, to Herr Hofmeister, Leipzig, Vienna, April 8th, 1802. Do you mean to go post-haste to the devil, gentlemen, by proposing that I should write such a sonata? During the revolutionary fever a thing of the kind might have been appropriate, but now, when everything is falling again into the beaten track, and Bonaparte has concluded a concordat with the Pope, such a sonata as this? If it were a Missa pro Sancta Maria Tre Voci or a Vesper, then I would at once take up my pen and write a Credo in Unum in gigantic semibreves. But, good heavens, such a sonata in this fresh-dawning Christian epoch? No, no, it won't do, and I will have none of it. Now for my answer in quickest tempo. The lady can have a sonata from me, and I am willing to adopt the general outlines of her plan in an aesthetical point of view, without adhering to the keys named. The price to be 5 ducats. For this sum she can keep the work a year for her own amusement, without either of us being entitled to publish it. After the lapse of a year, the sonata to revert to me, that is, I can and will then publish it, when, if she considers it any distinction, she may request me to dedicate it to her. I now, gentlemen, commend you to the grace of God. My sonata, opus 22, is well engraved, but you have been a fine time about it. I hope you will usher my septet into the world a little quicker, as the P is waiting for it, and you know the Empress has it, and when there are in this imperial city people like blank, name unknown or illegible, I cannot be answerable for the result. So lose no time. Herr Blank, possibly Molo, has lately published my quartets, opus 18, full of faults and errata, both large and small, which swarm in them like fish in the sea, that is, they are innumerable. Questo è un piacere un autore, that is, what I call engraving, Stechen, stinging, with a vengeance. Footnote 1. In truth, my skin is a mass of punctures and scratches from this fine edition of my quartets. Now farewell, and think of me as I do of you Till death, your faithful L. V. Beethoven. Footnote 1. In reference to the musical piracy at the time very prevalent in Austria. End of letter number 25. Letter number 29 to Herr Hofmeister, Leipzig. Vienna, September 22nd, 1803. I hereby declare all the works you have ordered to be your property. The list of these shall be made out and sent to you with my signature, as the proof of their being your own. I also agree to accept the sum of 50 ducats for them. Are you satisfied? Perhaps instead of the variations with violoncello and violin, footnote 1, I may send you variations for the piano, arranged as a duet on a song of mine. But Goethe's poetry must also be engraved, as I wrote these variations in an album, and consider them better than the others. Are you satisfied? The arrangements are not by me, though I have revised and much improved various passages, but I do not wish you to say that I have arranged them, for it would be false, and I have neither time nor patience to do so. Are you satisfied? Now farewell. I sincerely wish that all may go well with you. I would gladly make you a present of all my works, if I could do so and still get on in the world. But remember, most people are provided for, and know what they have to live on, while, good heavens, where can an appointment be found at the imperial court for such a parvum talentum cum ego? Your friend, L. V. Beethoven. Footnote 1. These are the 6 variations in D on the air Ich danke dein, written in 1800 in the album of the Countesses Josephine Dame and Teresa of Brunswick. End of letter number 29. End of section 5 of Selected Letters of Beethoven, as compiled and with footnotes by Dr. Ludwig Noll and translated by Lady Grace Wallace. Recording by Scott D. Farquhar, Baltimore, Maryland, www.splungemusic.com.
Section 6 of Selected Letters of Beethoven. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Victor Guerreiro. Selected Letters number 26 by Ludwig van Beethoven, has compiled and with footnotes by Dr. Ludwig Noll, and translated by Lady Grace Wallace. Letter number 26, footnote 1. To my brothers Karl and Johann Beethoven. Heiligenstadt, October 6, 1802. O ye you think or declare me to be hostile, morose, and misanthropical, how unjust you are, and how little you know the secret cause of what appears thus to you. My heart and mind were ever from childhood prone to the most tender feelings of affection, and I was always disposed to accomplish something great. But you must remember that 6 years ago I was attacked by an incurable malady, aggravated by unskilful physicians, deluded from year to year too, by the hope of relief, and at length forced to the conviction of a lasting affliction, the cure of which may go on for years and perhaps, after all, prove impracticable. Born with a passionate and excitable temperament, keenly susceptible to the pleasures of society, I was yet obliged early in life to isolate myself and to pass my existence in solitude. If I at any time resolved to surmount all this, oh, how cruelly was I again repelled by the experience, sadder than ever, of my defective hearing. And yet I found it impossible to say to others, "Speak louder, shout, for I am deaf." Alas! How could I proclaim the deficiency of a sense which ought to have been more perfect with me than with other men, a sense which I once possessed in the highest perfection, to an extent indeed that few of my profession ever enjoyed? Alas, I cannot do this. Forgive me, therefore, when you see me withdraw from you with whom I would so gladly mingle. My misfortune is doubly severe from causing me to be misunderstood. No longer can I enjoy recreation in social intercourse, refined conversation, or mutual outpourings of thought. completely isolated. I only enter society when compelled to do so. I must live like an exile. In company, I am assailed by the most painful apprehensions, from the dread of being exposed to the risk of my condition being observed. It was the same during the last 6 months I spent in the country. My intelligent physician recommended me to spare my hearing as much as possible, which was quite in accordance with my present disposition, though sometimes, tempted by my natural inclination for society, I allowed myself to be beguiled into it. But what humiliation when anyone beside me heard a flute in the far distance, while I heard nothing, or when others heard a shepherd singing, and I still heard nothing. Such things brought me to the verge of desperation, and well nigh caused me to put an end to my life. Art alone deterred me. How could I possibly quit the world before bringing forth all that I felt it was my vocation to produce? Footnote 2. And thus I spared this miserable life, so utterly miserable that any sudden change may reduce me at any moment from my best condition into the worse. It is decreed that I must now choose patience for my guide. This I have done. I hope the resolve will not fail me, steadfastly to persevere till it may please the inexorable fates to cut the thread of my life. Perhaps I may get better, perhaps not. I am prepared for either. Constrained to become a philosopher in my 28th year. Footnote 3. This is no slight trial, and more severe on an artist than on anyone else. God looks into my heart, He searches it, and knows that love for men and feelings of benevolence have their abode here. Oh, ye who may one day read this, think that you have done me injustice, and let anyone similarly afflicted be consoled by finding one like himself, who, in defiance of all the obstacles of nature, has done all in his power to be included in the ranks of estimable artists and men. My brothers Karl and Johann, as soon as I am no more, if Professor Schmidt be still alive, beg him in my name to describe my malady, and to add these pages to the analysis of my disease, that at least, so far as possible, the world may be reconciled to me after my death. I also hereby declare you both heirs of my small fortune, if so it may be called. Share it fairly, agree together and assist each other. You know that anything you did to give me pain has been long forgiven. I thank you, my brother Karl in particular, for the attachment you have shown me of late. My wish is that you may enjoy a happier life, and one more free from care than mine has been. Recommend virtue to your children. That alone, and not wealth, can ensure happiness. I speak from experience. It was virtue alone which sustained me in my misery. I have to thank her and art for not having ended my life by suicide. Farewell. Love each other. I gratefully thank all my friends, especially Prince Lichnowsky and Professor Schmidt. I wish one of you to keep Prince Elsa's instruments, but I trust this will give rise to no dissension between you. If you think it more beneficial, however, you have only to dispose of them. How much I shall rejoice if I can serve you even in the grave. So be it then. I joyfully hasten to meet death, if he comes before I have had the opportunity of developing all my artistic powers. Then, notwithstanding my cruel fate, he will come too early for me, and I should wish for him at a more distant period. But even then I shall be content, for his advent will release me from a state of endless suffering. Come when he may, I shall meet him with courage. Farewell. Do not quite forget me even in death. I deserve this from you, because during my life I so often thought of you, and wished to make you happy. Amen. Ludwig van Beethoven. Written on the outside. To be read and fulfilled after my death by my brothers Karl and Johann. Thus, then, I take leave of you, and with sadness too. The fond hope I brought with me here of being to a certain degree cured, now utterly forsakes me. As autumn leaves fall and wither, so are my hopes blighted. Almost as I came, I depart. Even the lofty courage that so often animated me in the lovely days of summer is gone forever. O Providence, vouchsafe me one day of pure felicity. How long have I been estranged from the glad echo of true joy? When, O my God, when shall I again feel it in the temple of nature and of man? Never. Ah, that would be too hard. Footnote 1. This beautiful letter I regret not to have seen in the original, it being in the possession of the violin virtuoso Ernst in London. I have adhered to the version given in the Leipzig Allgemeine Musikalische Zeitung, October 1827. Footnote 2. A large portion of the Eroica was written in the course of this summer, but not completed till August 1804. Footnote 3. Beethoven did not at that time know in what year he was born. See the subsequent letter of May 2, 1810. He was then far advanced in his 33rd year. End of letter number 26. End of section 6 of Selected Letters of Beethoven, as compiled and with footnotes by Dr. Ludwig Noll and translated by Lady Grace Wallace. Recording by Victor Guerreiro.
Section number 7 of Selected Letters of Beethoven. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit librivox.org. Recording by Squid Vazhlikova. Selected Letters number 66, 67, and 93 by Ludwig van Beethoven, as compiled and with footnotes by Dr. Ludwig Noll and translated by Lady Grace Wallace. Letter number 66. To Bettina Brentano. Footnote number 1. Vienna, August 11th, 1810. My dearest friend, never was there a lovelier spring than this year. I say so, and feel it too, because it was then I first knew you. You have yourself seen that in society I am like a fish on the sand, which writhes and writhes, but cannot get away till some benevolent Galatea casts it back into the mighty ocean. I was indeed fairly stranded, dearest friend, when surprised by you. At a moment in which moroseness had entirely mastered me, but how quickly it vanished at your aspect, I was at once conscious that you came from another sphere than this absurd world, where, with the best inclinations, I cannot open my ears. I am a wretched creature, and yet I complain of others. You will forgive this from the goodness of heart that beams in your eyes, and the good sense manifested by your ears. At least they understand how to flatter, by the mode in which they listen. My ears are, alas, a partition wall, through which I can with difficulty hold any intercourse with my fellow creatures. Otherwise, perhaps, I might have felt more assured with you, but I was only conscious of the full, intelligent glance from your eyes, which affected me so deeply that never can I forget it. My dear friend, dearest girl, art? Who comprehends it? Or with whom can I discuss this mighty goddess? How precious to me were the few days when we talked together, or, I should rather say, corresponded. I have carefully preserved the little notes, with your clever, charming, most charming answers. so I have to thank my defective hearing for the greater part of our fugitive intercourse being written down. Since you left this, I have had some unhappy hours, hours of the deepest gloom, when I could do nothing. I wandered for 3 hours in the Schönbrunn Allee after you left us, but no angel met me there to take possession of me as you did. Pray forgive, my dear friend, this deviation from the original key. But I must have such intervals as a relief to my heart. You have no doubt written to Goethe about me. I would gladly bury my head in a sack, so that I might neither see nor hear what goes on in the world, because I shall meet you there no more. But I shall get a letter from you? Hope sustains me, as it does half the world. Through life she has been my close companion, or what would have become of me? I sent you Kennst du das Land, written with my own hand, as a remembrance of the hour when I first knew you. I send you another that I composed since I bade you farewell, my dearest, fairest sweetheart. Herz, mein Herz, was soll das geben? Was bedranget dich so sehr? Welch ein neues, fremdes Leben! Ich erkenne dich nicht mehr. Now answer me, my dearest friend, and say what is to become of me, since my heart has turned such a rebel. Write to your most faithful friend, Beethoven. Footnote number 1. The celebrated letters to Bettina are given here exactly as published in her book, Ilius Pamphilius und die Ambrosia, Berlin, Arnhem, 1857, in 2 volumes. I never myself had any doubts of their being genuine, with the exception perhaps of words in the middle of the 3rd letter, nor can anyone now distrust them, especially after the publication of Beethoven's letters. But for the sake of those for whom the weight of innate conviction is not sufficient proof, I may here mention that in December 1864, Professor Moritz Carriere, in Munich, when conversing with me about Beethoven's letters, expressly assured me that these 3 letters were genuine, and that he had seen them in Berlin at Bettina von Arnim's in 1839, and read them most attentively and with the deepest interest. From their important contents, he urged their immediate publication, and when this shortly after ensued, no change whatever struck him as having been made in the original text. On the contrary, he still perfectly remembered that the much disputed phraseology, and especially the incident with Goethe, was precisely the same as in the originals. This testimony seems to me the more weighty, as Monsieur Carriere must not in such matters be looked on as a novice, but as a competent judge, who has carefully studied all that concerns our literary heroes, and who would not permit anything to be falsely imputed to Beethoven any more than to Goethe. Beethoven's biography is, however, the proper place to discuss more closely such things, especially his character and his conduct in this particular case. At present we only refer, in general terms, to the 1st chapter of Beethoven's Jugend, which gives all the facts connected with these letters to Bettina and the following ones. A characteristic likeness of Beethoven thus impressed itself on the mind of the biographer, and was reproduced in a few bold outlines in his biography. These letters could not, however, possibly be given in extenso in a general introduction to a comprehensive biography. End of letter number 66. Letter number 67 to Bettina Brentano, Vienna, February 10th, 1811. Dear and beloved friend, I have now received 2 letters from you, while those to Tony show that you still remember me, and even too kindly. I carried your letter about with me the whole summer, and it often made me feel very happy. Though I do not frequently write to you, and you never see me, still I write you letters by thousands in my thoughts, I can easily imagine what you feel at Berlin, in witnessing all the noxious frivolity of the world's rabble. Footnote 1. Even had you not written it to me yourself. Such prating about art, and yet no results. The best description of this is to be found in Schiller's poem, Die Flüsse, where the river Spree is supposed to speak. You are going to be married, my dear friend, or are already so, and I have had no chance of seeing you even once previously. May all the felicity that marriage ever bestowed on husband and wife attend you both. What can I say to you of myself? I can only exclaim with Joanna, "Compassionate my fate!" If I am spared for some years to come, I will thank the Omniscient, the Omnipotent, for the boon, as I do for all other weal and woe. If you mention me when you write to Goethe, strive to find words expressive of my deep reverence and admiration. I am about to write to him myself with regard to Egmont, for which I have written some music solely from my love for his poetry, which also delights me. Who can be sufficiently grateful to a great poet, the most precious jewel of a nation? Now no more, my dear sweet friend. I only come home this morning at 4 o'clock from an orgy, where I laughed heartily, but to-day I feel as if I could weep as sadly. Turbulent pleasures always violently recoil on my spirits. As for Clemens, note Brentano, her brother, pray thank him for his complaisance with regard to the cantata. The subject is not important enough for us here. It is very different in Berlin, and as for my affection, the sister engrosses so large a share that little remains for the brother. Will you be content with this? Now farewell, my dear, dear friend. I imprint a sorrowful kiss on your forehead, thus impressing my thoughts on it as with a seal. Write soon, very soon, to your brother, Beethoven. Footnote 1. An expression which, as well as many others, he no doubt borrowed from Bettina and introduced to please her. End of letter number 67. Letter number 93. To Bettina von Arnim, Toplitz, August 15th, 1812. My most dear, kind friend, kings and princes can indeed create professors and privy councillors, and confer titles and decorations, but they cannot make great men, spirits that soar above the base turmoil of this world. There their powers fail, and this it is that forces them to respect us. Footnote number 1. When two persons like Goethe and myself meet, these grandees cannot fail to perceive what such as we consider great. Yesterday, on our way home, we met the whole imperial family. We saw them coming some way off, when Goethe withdrew his arm from mine, in order to stand aside, and, say what I would, I could not prevail on him to make another step in advance. I pressed down my hat more firmly on my head, buttoned up my greatcoat, and, crossing my arms behind me, I made my way through the thickest portion of the crowd. Princes and courtiers formed a lane for me. Archduke Rudolph took off his hat, and the Empress bowed to me first. These great ones of the earth know me. To my infinite amusement, I saw the procession defile past Goethe, who stood aside with his hat off, bowing profoundly. I afterwards took him sharply to task for this. I gave him no quarter, and upbraided him with all his sins, especially towards you, my dear friend, as we had just been speaking of you. Heavens! If I could have lived with you as he did, believe me, I should have produced far greater things. A musician is also a poet. He too can feel himself transported into a brighter world by a pair of fine eyes, where loftier spirits sport with him and impose heavy tasks on him. What thoughts rushed into my mind when I first saw you at the observatory during a refreshing May shower, so fertilizing to me also. Footnote number 2. The most beautiful themes stole from your eyes into my heart, which shall yet enchant the world when Beethoven no longer directs. If God vouchsafes to grant me a few more years of life, I must then see you once more, my dear, most dear friend, for the voice within, to which I always listen, demands this. Spirits may love one another, and I shall ever woo yours. Your approval is dearer to me than all else in the world. I told Goethe my sentiments as to the influence praise has over men like us, and that we desire our equals to listen to us with their understanding. Emotion suits women only. Forgive me. Music ought to strike fire from the soul of man. Ah, my dear girl, how long have our feelings been identical on all points? The sole real good is some bright, kindly spirit to sympathize with us, whom we thoroughly comprehend, and from whom we need not hide our thoughts. He who wishes to appear something must in reality be something. The world must acknowledge us. It is not always unjust, but for this I care not, having a higher purpose in view. I hope to get a letter from you in Vienna. Write to me soon and fully, for a week hence I shall be there. The court leaves this tomorrow, and today they have another performance. The Empress has studied her part thoroughly. The Emperor and the Duke wished me to play some of my own music, but I refused, for they are both infatuated with Chinese porcelain. A little indulgence is required, for reason seems to have lost its empire. But I do not choose to minister to such perverse folly. I will not be a party to such absurd doings to please those princes who are constantly guilty of eccentricities of this sort. Adieu, adieu, dear one. Your letter lay all night next to my heart, and cheered me. Musicians permit themselves great license. Heavens, how I love you! Your most faithful friend and deaf brother, Beethoven. Footnote number 1. Fraulein Giantasio del Rio, in the journal she sent to the Grands Boten in 1857, states that Beethoven once declared, "It is very pleasant to associate with the great of the earth, but one must possess some quality which inspires them with respect." Footnote number 2. According to Bettina, note, see Goethe's Correspondence with a Child, Volume 2, 193, end note. Their first acquaintance was made in Beethoven's apartments. End of letter number 93. End of section number 7 of Selected Letters of Beethoven, as compiled and with footnotes by Dr. Ludwig Noll, and translated by Lady Grace Wallace. Recording by Squid Vajlakova. Found at frisco-squid.blogspot.com.
Section 8 of Letters of Beethoven. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recorded by Robert Scott. Selected Letters number 127 by Ludwig van Beethoven, as compiled with footnotes by Dr. Ludwig Noll and translated by Lady Grace Wallace. Letter number 127, Deposition, 1814. I voluntarily presented Maelzel gratis with a battle symphony for his panharmonic. After having kept it for some time, he brought me back the score, which he had already begun to engrave, saying that he wished it to be harmonized for a full orchestra. The idea of a battle had already occurred to me, which, however, could not be performed on his panharmonic. We agreed to select this and some more of my works to be given at the concert for the benefit of disabled soldiers. At that very time, I became involved in the most frightful pecuniary difficulties, forsaken by everyone in Vienna, and in daily expectation of remittances. Maelzel offered me 50 gold ducats, which I accepted, saying that I would either repay them or allow him to take the work to London, provided that I did not go there myself with him, referring him to an English publisher for payment. I got back from him the score written for the Panharmonic. The concerts then took place, and during that time Herr Maelzel's designs and character were first fully revealed. Without my consent, he stated on the bills of concert that the work was his property. Indignant at this, I insisted on destroying these bills. He then stated that I had given it to him as a friendly act, because he was going to London. To this I did not object, believing that I had reserved the right to state the conditions on which the work should be his own. I remember that when the bills were being printed, I violently opposed them, but the time was short and I was still writing the work, in all the fire of inspiration, and absorbed in my composition. I scarcely thought at all on the subject. Immediately after the first concert in the University Hall, I was told on all sides, and by people whom I could rely, that Maelzel had everywhere given out he had paid me 400 gold ducats for the symphony. I sent what follows to a newspaper, but the editor would not insert it, as Maelzel stands well with them all. As soon as the first concert was over, I repaid Maelzel his 50 ducats, declaring that, having discovered his real character, nothing should ever induce me to travel with him. Justly indignant that, without consulting me, he had stated in the bills that all the arrangements for the concert were most defective. His own despicable want of patriotism, too, is proved by the following expressions: quote, "I care nothing at all about London. If it is only to say in London that people have paid 10 gulden for admission here, that is all I care about. The wounded are nothing to me." End quote. Moreover, I told him that he might take the work to London on certain conditions, which I would inform him of. He then asserted that it was a friendly gift, and made use of this phrase in the newspapers after the second concert, without giving me the most remote hint on the subject. As Maelzel is a rude, churlish man, entirely devoid of education or cultivation, it is easy to conceive the tenor of his conduct to me during this time, which still further irritated me. Who could bear to be forced to bestow a friendly gift on such a man? I was offered an opportunity to send the work to the Prince Regent, afterwards George IV. It was therefore quite impossible for me to give away the work unconditionally. He then called on a mutual friend to make proposals. He was told on what day to return for an answer, but he never appeared, set off on his travels, and performed the work in Munich. How did he obtain it? He could not possibly steal it, but Herr Maelzel had several of the parts for some days in his house, and he caused the entire work to be harmonized by some obscure musical journeyman, and is now hawking it about the world. Herr Maelzel promised me ear trumpets. I harmonized the Battle Symphony for his Panharmonic from a wish to keep him to his word. The ear trumpets came at last, but were not of the service to me that I expected. For this slight trouble, Herr Maelzel, after my having arranged the Battle Symphony for a full orchestra and composed a battle piece in addition, declared that I ought to have made over these works to him as his own exclusive property. Even allowing that I am in some degree obliged to him for the ear trumpets, This is entirely balanced by his having made at least 500 gulden in Munich by my mutilated or stolen battle piece. He has therefore paid himself in full. He had actually the audacity to say here that he was in possession of the battle piece. In fact, he showed it, written out to various persons. I did not believe this, and in fact with good reason, as the whole is not by me, but compelled by someone else. Indeed, the credit he assumes for the work should alone be sufficient compensation. The secretary at the War Office made no allusions whatever to me, and yet every work performed at both concerts was of my composition. Herr Maelzel thinks fit to say that he has delayed his visit to London on account of the battle piece, which is a mere subterfuge. He stayed to finish his patchwork, as the first attempt did not succeed. Beethoven. End of letter 127. End of section 8. Letters of Beethoven, as compiled and with footnotes by Dr. Ludwig Noll, and translated by Lady Grace Wallace. Recorded by Robert Scott, June the 22nd, 2007.